right now. Joining me now is one of the Republican committee members that was pulled by Kevin McCarthy, North Dakota Republican Congressman Kelly Armstrong. Congressman, I really appreciate you coming on today. And let me just start with this. Do you wish you were had you wished you were on that committee today, regardless of the Jim Jordan, Jim Banks situation? Let's set that aside. Speaker Pelosi had indicated that there was fine with you and others. What do you think was missing today that you would have added?
Well, I think one question that I really would have liked to look at. Listen, let's start with this. These officers deserve to have their stories told. I mean, it was compelling. It was heart-wrenching. Their heroism is absolutely on display. We appreciate everything they did. But they also have decades of tactical experience amongst them. I mean, they're very accomplished. Some of them have served in riot control, all of those things. I think early on in the hearing when Officer Dunn mentioned that they were unprepared, I think there's a real question on that. What were we doing? What did we know? Did the officers on the ground that day have the same information that leadership had or other organizations had? Because outside of all of the politics with this, and listen, political consequences happen at the ballot box second Tuesday every even numbered year in November. But there are real structural questions that we have about what happened, how it got to that point, and what we do moving forward to make sure it doesn't happen again.
I want to play for you the words from Officers Hodgins and Fanon. Both sort of had similar takes on what they want this committee to investigate. Let me play it for you and get your reaction on the other side.
The indifference shown to my colleagues is disgraceful. Nothing, truly nothing, has prepared me to address those elected members of our government who continue to deny the events of that day. And in doing so, betray their oath of office. Those very members whose lives, offices, staff members I was fighting so desperately to defend. That is what I am looking for, is an investigation into those actions and activities which may have resulted in the events of January 6th. And also whether or not there was collaboration between those members, their staff, and these terrorists.
Fanon hit the nail on the head there. I need you guys to address if anyone in power had a role in this. If anyone in power coordinated or aided or abetted or tried to downplay, tried to prevent the investigation of this terrorist attack, because we can't do it.
You know, Congressman, I played those quotes at that time because you just brought up, it's clear that you want to dig deeper into the specifics of why the Capitol Police were overrun. Those police officers and many members of Congress would like to know how we got to that situation in the first place. How much coordination was it? January 6th wasn't picked randomly out of a hat to hold a Stop the Steal rally, down on the ellipse. How important is that part of the investigation, and do you not see that as an important part of this investigation?
Can I start with the first question first? Anybody trivializing or trying to reinvent what happened on January 6th, I don't care what party they're in, I will be one of the people to call them out, because I was on the floor that day, and I'm not sure we get off without the officer. I was in the balcony because of social distancing, and I'm not sure we get off without the heroism and the quick thinking of the officers that were there. So they absolutely have my support with there. But listen, we've said the whole time, the investigation should take it where it goes, and nothing should be off limits. The chairman said that of the committee, but then he also said the Speaker's office isn't off limits. But if there's aiding and abetting and colluding and all of those things, that is a DOJ investigation. And if they can do that, I don't care who it is. If it's a staff member on the Hill or anybody else, that absolutely should be prosecuted if it leads to that. But if we're talking about it from a political standpoint, then then again, everything should be on the table. And right now, it just doesn't feel like it is.
Let me ask you about whether you expect Leader McCarthy to offer up a new group of folks. Perhaps it's the three of you that the Speaker said was okay, and find two others. Is that a path you expect Leader McCarthy to go down, or is this going to be a full boycott by the House Republican Conference, with the exceptions, of course, of Cheney and Kinzinger?
You know, I think when you take off the chairman of the largest caucus in our conference, when you take off the ranking member of judiciary, you've made your point as to how this works, and that those voices are no longer being heard, which represent not just a large portion of our conference, but a large group of people all across the country. And I personally think Speaker Pelosi should put all 5 of us back on. And then at that point, I would absolutely be willing to serve and participate in this.
What, do you not understand why she decided? I mean, why would you put on somebody who knowingly is trying to misinform what happened that day, and put on people that voted against certifying the election based on, baloney? Why shouldn't that be the prerogative of a leader?
First of all, there's not a lot of minority rights you have in the minority of the Congress. You get to populate your own committees. I've been consistent on this. I've actually defended Democrats when my colleagues call for them to be stripped of committees. That's not our charge. But more importantly to this is you don't change the rules in hard cases. You don't do that. I used to try felony cases as a criminal defense attorney. In cases like this, when they're politically charged, when they're obviously once-in-a-generation events, you absolutely have to make sure your policies and procedures stay the same. It's more important now than in other times. And one of the fundamental places of how this place works now, and hopefully again in the future, is that we are allowed to, each party is allowed to populate their committees regardless of who's in charge.
Do you think it was ultimately a mistake for the Senate Republicans to reject what would have been a bipartisan, equally divided outside commission that would have done this, a la 9/11 or the Iraq Study Group? Was that, looking back on it, was that a major mistake?
Well, I think it was a mistake for Speaker Pelosi not to do it right away in the events after January 6th. Remember how this started. It wasn't bipartisan and moved on. But listen, I served in judiciary and oversight for 2 years, and in some real, hearings that obviously Mueller, 2 impeachments, all kinds of different things. We're capable of doing these select committees, but we should be allowed to do them in the way Congress operates. As an exercise and as really truly allowing officers to tell their story and making sure people recognize what they went through and how much heroism happened on January 6th was great. But I don't think we came 1 minute closer to getting an answer to anything in today's hearing. And I think that's unfortunate. And I think the better way to do this would be allow each party to put their members on and go.
I want to play a shot that you said on January 13th about impeachment, and I want to ask you about it on the other side. Let's play it.
I'm going to vote against impeachment, and that's going to give me credibility at home with my base. You're going to vote for impeachment, and that's going to give you credibility at home with your base. It's easy to point at me and blame me. It's easy for me to point at you and blame you. But on January 21st, we're all going to be back here. So use that credibility. Go back and talk some hard truths to your people. I'm going to do it, and we need to do a better job.
So what kind of hard truths have you been saying to your folks? You said your reason to vote against impeachment was so you could have credibility at home, which tells me, and look, and there's 2 philosophies about representative government. Are you there to give your best judgment, or are you there to represent what a majority of your constituents want? And I know it's not easy making that decision on any given issue. I'm not going to sit here and second guess that. But what kind of hard truths have you had with your base in North Dakota?
I voted against impeachment not to give me credibility. I was saying my vote against impeachment give me credibility. Listen, I've done town halls all across the state. We have a very, very pro-President Trump wing of this party. I have to answer these questions every day, and I do, on what happened on January 6th, what really happened versus what a lot of people try and say happened, why I supported seating the electors, why I didn't sign on to the Texas lawsuit. I have those conversations at home every single day. Some of them get uncomfortable, but I'm completely fine doing that. We'll continue to take that message here. But I also think it's important that when you're doing a committee like this, we have to be able to have hard truths on both sides. And if we're not willing to do that, and it's obvious that this is set up at that point, moving that way forward, then it's not going to get anybody where they need to be back at home. So I have lots of conversations at home with people
Armstrong.
mad at me, Chuck.
Look, I think everybody who deals with any part of any piece of the electorate these days knows that there's no pleasing anyone these days anymore, that's for sure. Congressman Kelly Armstrong, a Republican from North Dakota, who would have been on this committee, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspective with our viewers here.
Thank you.